All right, let's talk about hyperlinked keywords and what to hyperlink and what not to hyperlink. So let's say we have a blog post that says, that's yummy Halloween bark recipe. Okay, so I'm going to move that a little bit closer so you can see that a little bit better. So what will happen is a lot of times you'll see that like people will just link the entire hyperlink the entire title to another place, and that's fine. Like if we're doing that. All right, let's talk a little bit about hyperlinked phrases. And what hyperlink phrase means, that whatever you are linking, you highlight to link to another location, is the hyperlinked phrase. So what generally happens in most situations is you write a blog post, yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids, and you hyperlink the entire title to wherever you're going, which is fine. That lets Google, because what Google will do is any incoming link to a post. So if we're sitting on the yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids recipe, and we'll just pretend like we're Google sitting there, and then it sees, kids activities blog linked to this from another one of their posts. Let's see what the phrase what they think this is about. And the hyperlink keyword phrase is generally a pretty strong indicator to Google is what is this about, okay? So what we can do when we control the link, meaning that we're linking to ourselves, or we're asking for a link from someone else that we can kind of push the language, is what we can do is tell Google something that's more specific. While hyperlinking this whole thing tells Google it's a yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids, that's good, but what if, let's just say that yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids, no one in the history of Google has ever typed that phrase in there. So it's almost giving it more information, which is really funny. A lot of times we're trying to get more specific, but with Google, we work from specifics. So we named this article this so that Google knows that that's what it is, the reader knows what it is. But in the grand scheme of things, wouldn't it be amazing to be ranking for if someone typed in Halloween bark recipe for kids? Or how amazing would it be if someone typed in Halloween bark recipe? Or how amazing would it be if someone found us when they were just typing in Halloween bark? So when we can control it ourselves, we generally want to try to go for that aspirational keyword phrase to a certain point. Now, if a post has no traction, like if nobody's ever linked into yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids, that it's been on the blog for 12 years and no one cares about it, no one loves it, probably has bad pictures, so nobody shared it on social media. Would we ever be able to get Halloween bark as a keyword phrase? No. Like if we're not getting anything, then quite honestly, it's fine to use the really, really long one, because then Google might see it as yummy Halloween recipe, yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids, Halloween recipe for kids, and all that kind of stuff. So that gives that longer phrase is fine in the grand scheme of things. What we don't want to do is hyperlink things that don't go to that. So like let's say that we're trying to link to yummy Halloween bark recipe for kids, and we link with the words click here. And you see this all the time on the internet. Somebody linked the words click here. That's a great call to action. But now when Google comes to see what is this article all about, the words are click here. And you're never ever gonna rank for click here. But you don't want to, because you wanna rank for something. You want to give people enough information that when they click through, that they know what they're clicking on, and that gives a little bit additional information. So generally when I'm trying to find a good keyword phrase, it's one of the ones that are more competitive. Maybe we're not ranking, or maybe we're ranking like number 90, but we could, eventually get to the top page, because we can, every time we start ranking for a bunch of keywords, that helps us rank for more and more. It's almost like a ladder. So we might be able to rank for Halloween bark recipe for kids. Once we get on the front page for that keyword phrase, it's a lot easier for us to get to Halloween bark recipe. Once we get to that, it's a lot easier for us to get to Halloween bark or bark recipe without the Halloween. So it's kind of a game we're playing. And what's so cool about when we link to ourselves, we get to choose this. And so that's why a lot of times we're going in and looking at two things. What phrases and links, because remember, not only is the words of what this is about for that link we're linking to, but it's also words on the page that need to be important for that post. Remember when we were doing like the 15 links, and it might be a post about a recipe, but then Google was saying, oh, baby shark coloring page. It was ranking for baby shark coloring page, but it was a recipe. But the reason is because Google looks at everything that's on the page. It figures that it was important if you put it there. Well, you know how disappointed people are if they thought they were going to be clicking on baby shark coloring pages and they get a Halloween bark recipe, that they're going to freak out, go back to Google, and Google's going to start saying they're not describing what they're writing about very well. So what we're trying to do is find phrases, and it's kind of like a spider web to a certain extent, trying to find phrases that support the article that we're writing without stealing juice. Okay, what does that mean? So let's say we had a Valentine's bark recipe. And this Valentine's bark recipe, that post was super popular. It was just shared all over the place, and it's on the front page of Google for bark recipe. Okay, so this would be a really good place to promote our Halloween bark recipe, right? Because look, Google loves our Valentine bark recipe. So, well, you think, an aspirational phrase for Halloween bark recipe would be bark recipe. But guess what? We don't necessarily want to steal the thunder of this post by linking out to another post with exactly the same best keyword phrase, okay? So in this situation, we'd actually be better off going for Halloween bark recipe, so that, because bark recipe is what we're ranking for that, but if we're linking out, adding the Halloween is going to be a better choice, because we're going to be able to not steal the thunder of this. And so that's the other thing is sometimes, and like this is hard with coloring pages a lot of times too, is that if we have something that is, let's say we have 2 tiger coloring pages on the website, which we do. I just saw them. One is a real tiger and one is like a baby tiger. So we could link from like maybe like a lion coloring page to both those tiger coloring pages, but I wouldn't want to link them both with tiger coloring page. I would want one of them to be, big tiger coloring page or tiger coloring sheet, and then the other one would be like little baby tiger page or something like that. You don't want to ever use the same. It's kind of like stealing the thunder from the hyperlink phrase. So you want to vary your hyperlink phrases, but it makes a lot of sense on a lion coloring page that you would be linking to several other big cats. And that's the other thing that's really amazing about this is Google used to just look at the hyperlink key phrase. Like it was like narrow-minded, oh, this is what this is about. Now, context is so important. And so even though we might hyperlink Halloween bark recipe, like that's what we're hyperlinking, we could put words all around it that support it, that Google will then put more context around it. So even though we're only hyperlinking certain things, we might still add the for kids or yummy or easy to make or like can be done in 15 minutes or great for a gift, or those kind of things can all be surrounding that, but just making sure the hyperlink key phrase is original, doesn't steal the thunder from something else. And if we have some traction, that it's a little bit aspirational for whatever we're linking to, because we control the narrative. We get to decide. So we might as well decide on something that will give, we're basically able to say, Google, this is what we think it's about. We don't think it's Halloween bark recipe for kids. We think it's Halloween bark recipe, or we think it's bark recipe. So but here again, and we run into this every once in a while, if it's not ranking for anything, there's no way in hell we're ever gonna get bark recipe to rank. So go ahead and use the larger ones until we get some traction, and then we can go in and make them smaller and more concise. So this is gonna be, this is a little bit, that's why a lot of times I feel like some of the answers are not the same, or I'm not being consistent when I'm answering answers. And we're going to see this specifically in these category pages that we're just creating. So I ran a test. I think I looked at the analytics. Maybe it was 4 or 5 days ago. So a bunch of category pages that I had created the week before were now ranking. Each of those pages was ranking for between maybe 7 and 20 keyword phrases. Some of the ones that I had written like a month ago, one of them was ranking for over 200 keyword phrases. So you can see how 2 weeks ago, if I would have said, well, what should I use to rank to hyperlink this category? It's ranking for nothing. Then I'm going to just kind of throw spaghetti on the wall and think of something a little bit longer that makes sense in the article that I was written, and just see how it goes. But as little as a week later, once there was good content on that page, all of a sudden, instead of saying, like linking into the Halloween ideas category, for instance, it wasn't ranking for anything a month ago. Today it's ranking for over 150 phrases. So now I'm able to look through that list, and what I do is I look through what is it ranking for right now. Let's pick one of the harder ones that's at the top of the list that has a lot of volume, but maybe we're number 80 for it. So with the Halloween ideas post today, when I did the category page, when I went in and did the search, I ended up using the words Halloween activities for kids because I had a lot of search volume. We were already ranking for it. And so we could probably rise up a few more, remember the ladder that we're trying to climb. Now, is that optimal? No, because we actually have another category called Halloween activities for kids. But that's only ranking for 3 or 4 phrases right now, and none of them are Halloween activities for kids. So you see how right now it's just about strategy. It's a game we're playing, and sometimes the rules are going to feel a little bit different than other times. What my goal is that in the next, by the time next Halloween comes around, that we're able to get bigger phrases on the Halloween ideas, and so that we can use all those Halloween activities for kids, Halloween crafts for kids, and all those kind of things for that category that's not ranking very well now. But it's just an interesting thought, is what if I had linked to both those categories in maybe this Halloween bark article? So I would just have tried to find phrases that people wouldn't be disappointed when they got there, and that Google understands every time we put these hyperlink key phrases, we're letting Google know, hey, and remember, if we're already ranking for it, and then we hyperlink with those words, we're telling, hey, Google, you're right. And everybody likes to be told they're right. So that's one of the reasons why that's the strategy a lot of times. Now, as we start, like that Halloween activity, Halloween ideas post, like once we are ranking for, like I did a post today, it was the Christmas printables. We're ranking for over 1,000 keyword phrases on that. So you can see how the linking strategy is different when it's like, oh my gosh, we get to pick what we want. And so Christmas printables was the best one. And so everything I linked into on that post was using the Christmas printables. Instead of a year ago, we might have been like Christmas coloring pages and worksheets or something like that. Like it would have been a longer, less volume keyword phrase. And so this is a crazy little game we're playing. And but one thing that you can be confident about is you're not gonna, so like I know the one that we were talking about today was so it was the Harry Potter stencils, and then someone had accidentally put in link to the Harry Potter category. So the blog post was Harry Potter stencils, and then which is what we want to be ranking for the blog post, and then someone had mistakenly put let's link to the category with Harry Potter stencils. Well, we don't want to steal the thunder of the Harry Potter stencils by linking to that category that way. And quite honestly, when they get to that, they're going to see so much more. So like what I would like with Harry Potter, or and then I would maybe say all things Harry Potter hyperlinked, or Harry Potter crafts and activities, or this can be a broader thing depending on how much traction Harry Potter has. But let's say you don't know at all. Then what I would say is there's no problem linking to a category with the name of the category. When all else fails, you're like, I have no idea what to hyperlink. Then the name of the category, as long as it's not fighting with anything that's already in there, it's not doubling up the hyperlink phrases, or it's repeating whatever your title is or something like that, then that can be a really easy kind of out. It's a good strategy no matter what, because we named those categories with what the aspirational hyperlink phrase would be. So when you could do some research and stuff like that, if you have an idea or want to test something out or want to see if you can, because what's really fun about this is once we start seeing these things, we're going to see them rise. And you can kind of like, oh my gosh, I added these 2 links this week with those keyword phrases, and all of a sudden it went up 10 points. And so that's what will happen as we go along. So if you're testing something out or going to go back and look at it, then test it out if it makes sense. And if all else fails and you don't know exactly what to do, then using the category. If you're linking to a category, then using the category. And it kind of can go back to like the blog post too, is like if you're in a rush and you need to do something really quickly and you're like, what is the shortest phrase that I can use that describes that is in the title? So Halloween bark recipe, Halloween bark, that kind of stuff is a good, safe guess when in doubt. So I know I talked a long way around that to get into, it's easier than it seems, but that's why things aren't as consistent sometimes when we talk about them. But it does need to make sense to you and to Google.